Hey there everyone, and welcome back to the React.js training. And so far we have done one component, and I hope you are following along, the course sales component. And now from this video we are going to talk about the course component, which is kind of extension. So this is kind of a chaining inside the course sales in here somewhere. There we go. Here we are calling the course component. So basically most of the technical stuff will happen in the course. So let's try to do it. Now let's talk about this guy. So we are passing in here item.active. So let's just first use that, and we'll be using it inside the constructor. So the very first thing that we'll be doing is calling the constructor. So rcon for constructor, and in here we'll be passing on a thing. So we'll be simply calling active, and initially our active will be false. Okay, so initially the user hasn't bought anything yet. Okay, now what we'll be doing is we'll be calling on click method that will be called whenever anybody is selecting any paragraph or things like that. Okay, so or basically let me just first show you that how the things are gonna be there. So let's go in here, and we're gonna have just a paragraph. Let's close this paragraph, and this paragraph will have a method on click, and this on click will be this dot clicker. Now I know many of you are not a fan of defining the method or using the method first and later on defining, but hey, this is just for a perspective that I want to show you the things. But again, always I like my methods to be defined earlier on before I use them. Okay, that is good. And since things are being passed on as a property, I can say this dot props dot name. No big deal in here. We could have printed out all of the things in here as well, but we are just passing them in here. So this dot props dot name, and let's print out the pricing as well. I like to bold the pricing. So there we go. Added the syntax of bold, and we're gonna simply say in the curly braces this dot props dot price. Okay, sounds good. Save that, and obviously we are seeing all the things in here, but right now it's gonna crash as soon as I hit anything or click anything in here. Right now it's not crashing, but it's yelling quite a lot on us in the console. So it's not yelling. Okay, because it's not yelling. I'll tell you the reason why it's not yelling, because it is also important. Because this function is there on click, but there is no function defined, as well as we haven't defined it in the constructor as well. Okay, so this sounds good. Now what we should do, now let's first of all bind this on click, and then we'll be defining what happens when we click on something. So binding would be simple. I'll not click, I'll copy this clicker. I'll go inside in here. Notice I'm inside the constructor just after this dot state. So I'm gonna bind this dot clicker is gonna equal to this dot clicker dot, you know it very well. Okay, now it is okay. Now we can define the clicker. I would like to define it at the top. So clicker, and this is how we give the definition. Now you might see other ways of defining the things, like using the function keyword, but I'm using the total ES6 syntax in here, which is much more friendly and I would say much more understandable. So I'll be going on with that. Now what happens when somebody clicks on that? Now the very first thing that we'll be doing is we'll be changing the state in here. So obviously the state should be now false. Okay, and that's the very first thing that we'll be doing. So let's just go ahead. So we're going to simply say let's declare a variable active, and we are not directly defining the active because this is a state variable in here, or state object there. So we'll first store this state into an active, and then we'll be using set state method to define it. Okay, so we'll be reversing it. We'll be saying this dot state, this dot state dot active. So whatever the state is, we are just reversing it. And notice we are using an exclamation there to reverse from true to false, false to true. You know that it's just a Boolean operation. Now we're gonna call this dot set state, and in that, inside the curly braces, we are gonna say active is now changed to active. So basically this active is exactly the same this active, and this guy is coming from in here. Okay, quite very explanatory there. Okay, now let's do and call up a property there. So notice we are passing a method in here as well, that is sum price, and somehow this sum price is expecting a price to be passed on as well. So we'll be passing on that price as well when somebody clicks on that. And notice this method is only going to be called when somebody is clicking on that paragraph or something. So let's just do that. So this is going to be simple, this dot props dot sum price, and it expects us to pass on thing. Now notice one thing in here, that if we'll just pass on a price in here, it's not gonna work. It is always going to add the price regardless we click it on 2 times. But notice what we want to do, if somebody clicks on it, okay, now things are not working right now because we are writing the code. So if somebody clicks on it on 1 time, we want to add it. If somebody clicks on it 1 more time, then simply we want to reduce the price, means it's not onto the shopping cart list. So we can use the syntax in here with the active. Now this will act as a true or false. Now if active is true, what we want to do is simply this dot props dot price. We want to send the price. Okay. And if it is set to the false, then what we want to do, we want to say the negative of that. So colon this dot props dot price, and notice either one of them will be sent no matter what, because it will be either sent to the false, or this is going to be set to the true as well. So, and again we are starting with the default state of false, so no matter what, as soon as the page reloads, it's always going to start with 0, and our logic looks pretty solid in here. Okay, so this is good so far. And notice we are calling the sum price not from here, from the props. That means we are calling this sum price. Okay, I hope you got the concept, and I'll save that, and I'm expecting things to be here. Now notice the total in here, and if I click on that, notice it says 190. If I click it again, it says 0. So if I click on 2 of them, 190 and 180, it just adds them up. It's adding all of the things. So if I click again, it's doing its job pretty good. Okay, so this is our final application, but I know it doesn't look really beautiful. So what I want you to do is go to the file, click on the open, and now you need to go into the full scale apps, I guess, no, exercise React, and you will see CSS for course purchase.txt. So open up this txt, and I have got some rules in here for you. Now again, as I told you, we are not going to much focus on the CSS in this particular course, but still I don't want my apps to be looking really ugly there. So open up app.css, and at the bottom just add the CSS, and I'll explain you what the CSS is going on. And we need to modify things a little bit. Right now it's there, but it's not gonna work exactly how we are going to look on it. So let's just go ahead and do a little bit of the things. Notice as I click on it, it just adds the thing, but I want some things to be happening in here as well, because right now user has no indication whether things are good or not. So notice on some classes there is a dot active method as here as well. So we'll be using it. Let's go into the course sales there, and what we want to do in this guy, so this is on this paragraph, we want to use a class on certain condition. For example, if the state is active, means the active variable in here is true, then we want to apply the class of active, and only then, otherwise the class should not be there. So how you can do that is using a class, and again notice it's a class name, not class, again because it's a reserved keyword. And then we are going to simply say this dot state dot active. We are querying from the state there. And again, we'll be using our operator simple question mark and colon operator, which are shortcut of if and else. So if it is true, then we are going to apply the class of active there. And if it is not, then we are going to simply leave it blank. Simple, as simple as it sounds. Now what will happen after this is certain CSS rule will be applied if the things are active. Like for example, if I click in here, and I need to reload, I guess. Did I save that? I think so. I saved it in here. And things are looking good to me, and I think it should work. Somehow we are missing something or in here. That's not a big deal actually. We are just missing out something, maybe something on a simple CSS rule, nothing much to be worried about. So let's just reload that. So I'm expecting a little bit different behavior in here, and somehow it's not giving me that. Okay, so let me just show you what we are missing in here. And I guess we are missing some classes in here. Let's just go at the top. Courses, this is total, this is good. And perhaps I'm missing something, and I don't really know much about it. I just wanted to finish this project in up here. So that would be good. You know the syntax now. Let's give it into your assignment. But again, if you feel discomfortable there, we'll be talking more about the CSS and all of that in the later on project. Right now, you don't need to worry much about. Let me just save the things. And in case you spot out the error there, let me know in the comments section in the Q&A. I'll surely figure it out. No problem at all. But this looks much better. And you can see as soon as you click on anything, it just adds up the price there. So you can see you can add up all of them, but you cannot add, you can just keep going on that. So definitely our application is a little bit buggy in here. We should not be allowing it. We can also pass one more variable that whether this is being selected or not. So again, and if you reload, everything just becomes fresh. So I think you have learned quite a lot in this. Obviously, the application is not fully perfect in the CSS terms, as well as if somebody clicks on it again and again, it just keeps on adding and removing the things. You can just keep on adding the things like this, and things are pretty good so far. I know in the last part we made a little bit mess, but programming is all about figuring out the bugs. So your job now, let me just quickly give you your assignment as well. Your job is first of all very simple. You have to move this courses into a separate file. So move this component into separate file and then call it in here. That would be assignment 1. The second assignment is to figure out where I messed around in the bug. And we'll discuss it for sure in the Q&A section, and I'll update the Git repository of this project along with your name if you were able to find out before me. So let's get started in here.